say hello to. To those living in the US or Japan, the Master System is remembered as that other 8-bit console, if it's even remembered at all. With a small library of titles, mostly programmed or reprogrammed by Sega in-house, it had a hard time driving attention away from Nintendo's juggernaut. And while it boasted many arcade conversions of big Sega hits, Sega lacked the marketing muscle and know-how to give the SMS a fighting chance. The story is a very different one elsewhere, however, where the system would go on to be very successful. The history of the machine, like most from this era, starts in Japan. The Master System started life as the Sega Mark III, which was a refinement of the tech used in the SG-1000. Heck, it was even backwards compatible with the SG-1000 games. Makes me wonder if I could rig the US version to run them too, conceivably. Tangent aside, the Mark III was quite a bit more advanced than the Famicom, but sold poorly as Nintendo had already established a death grip on the Asian market. They gave a US release a shot, hoping to give the still new NES a good run here with its advanced specs as the redesigned Master System. Of course, Nintendo wasn't exactly playing fair at the time, restricting third parties who wanted to make games on their hardware to only develop on Nintendo hardware, and with Nintendo's head start both at home and the States, Sega had a hard time convincing third parties to take a chance on them. Sega at one point sold the rights to the Master System to Tonka in North America, and they didn't exactly do a good job either. Couple all that with the slow release of games and more than a few shoddy titles, and the NTSC release of the Master System can best be described as a cluster fail. In Europe and Brazil, however, the Master System was wildly successful, so much so that it's still being sold to this day in Brazil. After the release of the Genesis, Sega devoted its resources away from the Master System in all regions it was floundering. That's really all she wrote. Surprisingly, this console is more fragile than you'd think. I have 3 that have died on me, so be careful. Pay special attention to the pause button on the console. They tend to get stuck, and certain games require it for gameplay. It uses the familiar RF setup I've shown in every episode, along with a composite cable, which also works with the first Genesis model. The AC adapter is also the same as the Genesis one in the Sega CD. And the TurboGrafx 16 for some reason, so it's easy to replace. SMS controllers look like this, and a couple of games absolutely require them, but trade up to a Genesis controller for everything else. There are really only 3 to speak of. The light phaser, the 3D glasses, which require specific games to function, but work well for tech of its time. You'll also need a CRT TV for both of these accessories. And there's also the sports controller, which is required for all the sports games. Many of the best games saw release on the Wii Virtual Console, so that's the way to go if you don't want the physical console. The SMS has many decent overlooked titles that you probably missed growing up. It's an interesting and inexpensive console to collect for, and isn't region locked between PAL and NTSC formats. If you're a Sega fanboy, or want to see the other face of 8-bit gaming, give it a look.